We are about to start the last proper chapter of the book, and we're moving from unraveled and the misplaced faith in our system to repair the foundational fabric of this country. I mean, how can we restore something designed only to last for a moral people with shared values and shared meaning when we are so undone? When shared meaning has been so undermined and we no longer share any values society-wide. The pillars are rubble and the fabric is just threads already. It is over now. And political, legal, constitutional, and administrative solutions take time. So, what can we do? Chapter 17. Perhaps more peaceful protests bringing attention to the government's violation of the social contract are necessary. And if they are not covered by the media, even more such protests need to take place. Egypt got rid of the Muslim Brotherhood. Iran waited for support from the United States that never came, yet they continue to protest. Lebanon briefly got rid of Hezbollah's influence, but it is back. Because we can never let our guard down, but we have, and it has been down for a very long time. We have become complacent, and the only thing it takes for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing. And that is why all the people looking to the apparent wins as evidence that the tide is turning, that we can reclaim life as we know it, that we can reestablish a liberty foundation, that's why that's so dangerous. Because such apparent wins are not evidence that the tides have turned. They're just evidence that we are not alone in our desire to actually turn the tides. And if the only thing it takes for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing, if we let our guard down, we will step back into doing nothing. But we have to understand that these apparent wins are not evidence that the tides are turning, only that we are not alone in our desire to actually turn the tides. And I am not certain that the crowd approach will ever again be effective until society itself changes. We're going to get back to that a little bit later in this chapter, but remember, government is not the solution to the problems it created. If we are going to reclaim or repair the society, it isn't going to start with those keen on its destruction. Instead, it is going to start with us, you, me, a single individual. And I know it is so overwhelming, too overwhelming. And we all know that I, as one person, can have no impact on the larger society. And again, we're going to get back to that later. But yes, it must start with one individual. So what can this one individual do? First, take responsibility. Individual responsibility and individual liberty are two sides of the same coin. Live a principled life. Educate yourself. Understand natural law and natural rights. Establish a moral standard based on such understanding and live accordingly. And that's why I wrote this book, to put it all out there. What we should understand about reality and the foundation upon which liberty exists, why this country exists, how it exists. And that's why I encourage you to gift this book to another American who is trapped in the way of thinking that things have to be done as they always have been, through political party and elections and protests and boycotts and online debates and social media wars. This book is intended to serve as a primer, or if you already know everything in here, as a reminder of what the society we once thought we had was built upon, and how we lost it, and how we will keep losing it if something is not done. Those who don't know history cannot know what has worked and what has failed. So, what can we do? Take responsibility. Individual responsibility and individual liberty are two sides of the same coin. So, live a principled life. Educate yourself. Understand natural law and natural rights. Establish a moral standard based on such understanding and live accordingly. Live in your innate freedom. Embrace your innate equality. And then take responsibility for your family. Keep promises. Intentionally teach and model the values you deem most important to the future. Act in the best interests of your family, even if it entails short-term pain. I mean, this is what we should be demanding from our officials, but we cannot even demand it from ourselves. Live according to principle, not your passions. Set standards, meet those standards, keep them, and don't just follow your emotions in the moment. And yes, living according to principle can cause short-term pain. That is what happens when we give up what we desire in the moment for long-term benefits. That's why, for example, people budget and save instead of buy and consume. I mean, go back to chapter 2. But instead of living according to principle and embracing the pain in the short term for the long term, what we actually want in the long term, we are surrounded by messages of feelings and self-importance and living in the now. And it's all around us. So this takes pain regardless of how closely you adhere to those principles, because you will be going against the prevailing narrative. So next, we can turn off the media, especially, but not only, social media. I cut myself off from the constant and ubiquitous narrative and found peace. If you are concerned about missing important news, subscribe to your city or county's newsletters and maybe simply read the headlines that are somehow pushed to our devices each and every day. Then only engage those stories if you have someone else with whom to discuss the news, and only if you believe it will directly affect your life. If you have children, cut them off too. Instead, read books together, especially fiction, because that can actually be super fun. And talk about the plots and principles and life lessons found therein. Point out biases, point out universal truths, false dichotomies, logical fallacies, and discuss the plots as though they were real and the characters' actions had real life consequences. These can be fun conversations that children can learn from without even knowing it. Take time with your families. Get to know not just your children, but your parents and siblings, aunts and uncles, cousins and nieces and nephews. Discover what makes them unique and wonderful, and then celebrate who they are and who they were created to be. Without the distraction of movies and television, without social media constantly sucking your time, you will be amazed at how much time you have to fill with authentic relationships. Instead of looking at the lives of loved ones through a social media filter, call them, email them, send them cards, and go visit them. Build friendships around acquaintances and work relationships as well. Go to lunch, get drinks after work, go on group dates, join a club together. Lastly, if possible, take your children out of public school. And guess what? It is always possible. If a private school, which is not guaranteed to be any better than the public school, is outside your financial abilities, find a homeschool co-op, a friend group, or a retired teacher who left for the same reasons you are pulling your child. Try to negotiate a different work schedule. The pandemic mitigation measures demonstrated how capable of finding solutions we truly are when faced with immovable limitations. Brainstorm solutions with others. The possibilities are endless, and human beings are innovative when it comes to realizing personal goals around intentional priorities. It makes no sense for those intent on destroying our values to spend more time with our children than we do. Children are the only hope this society has. We need to do whatever it takes to prevent the enemy from stealing their minds, their hearts, their intrinsic value, and their joy. And this is not in the book, but honestly, especially with the advent of artificial intelligence, do not send your children to university unless it is absolutely necessary for what they want to do with the rest of their lives. I go around asking people in the service industry, mostly, the faces of the companies I interact with, do you like your job? I mean, this could be a nurse or a doctor too, but do you like your job? If they do, or even if they don't, first, it is a great conversation starter to introduce this idea of authenticity to the transaction or the interaction. But then I have the chance to tell them, I think the world works better and society is happier and everyone's basically happier as a whole when people enjoy what they do and why they do it. Now, from someone who actually came out of academia, I know there might be some good universities still in play. But let me tell you, as I've said before, most universities, most liberal arts colleges are not giving your children a well-rounded education. They are not providing them with opportunities for growth through challenging their thinking. They are not providing them opportunities to practice any critical thinking, to not even to articulate what they believe or think or have learned through rigorous investigation or research. And even if there are courses and programs designed to do this, artificial intelligence is stealing those opportunities. And I've seen this happen in just the past year. I mean, since I published this book, since publication, the number of times AI has stolen those opportunities has grown exponentially over the last academic year. And I've said this before, people are way too enamored with AI and are not nearly alarmed enough by what the advent of machine learning means to the future. And again, people are thinking that any little battle win means the tides are turning, but AI will make the kind of tyranny Orwell envisioned actually possible, implementable, regardless of how many people wake up to the danger. So now, more than ever, Americans should be asking, what can we do?